All right. This is an incredible crowd. So we're ready to talk some jobs. You've had the raffle, you've gotten pumped up. So I'm kind of afraid to say this because I don't want to clear the room, but what I found out this morning is I'm like competing with Greta Thunberg. If you know, 16-year-old, climate activist, she's amazing, she's awesome. She's got 2,899,500 more Twitter followers than me. I mean, who's counting? I'm certainly not. So I'm Gerhart. Sure, put my Twitter handle on there in case you're doing live tweeting. The Twitter handle is like my name. That's tough. So I'm with the innovation engine at Atrium Health. Appreciate the intro, Michael. A little bit about our team. We are what we call a small but mighty corporate innovation team. We actually have 12 people now. We're in 2 states. We got 10 of us here in Charlotte. We got 2 of us in Macon, Georgia at Navicent Health. It's an incredible group of people led by our Chief Innovation Officer, Dr. Gene Wright. We focus on business model innovation, human-centered design, commercialization, strategic partnerships. We bring tech into the company. We spin tech and teammate inventions out. And we try to build an innovation ecosystem. We try to teach people inside the system things like jobs to be done, disruptive innovation, human-centered design. It's a little bit of what the podcast is about. And towards the end, I'll give you some ways to connect with me and connect with the team. So I look out here, and these are some of the larger companies in Charlotte. I figure there's probably some people in the room that work with these companies, or maybe you've worked with some of these companies. You came to skook them because they're like so cool and they like got great stuff in the kitchen and it's a fun place to work. Lots of different kind of companies, but y'all got something in common. The bankers, no one wants loans. No one really wants checking accounts. I hate to tell you that. People don't really want tools or carpet. They don't get up in the morning and say, I want electricity. And and in the healthcare industry, we got to admit, people don't actually want healthcare. They may not actually want health or even be able to articulate what it is. You all got that in common. And this is the notion of jobs to be done is you, the organization, your products and services are not the end-all, be-all. It's about something else. And jobs to be done is a little bit about humility. It's not about thinking less of yourself. It's about thinking of yourself less. So it's, again, thinking less about your organization, your products and services. So, Brad, who set this up with me, he didn't let me put this title. So this is really what we're going to talk about. I'm really sorry, but people don't want what you sell. But I don't know, if we'd put that up on Meetup, I don't think we would have gotten you here. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to do a little poll here. It's going to be very informal. And I'm just going to read out the selections. Then I'm going to have you raise your hand. So I want to just gauge, I'm curious of what people's level of familiarity with jobs are. We got none to minimal. I've heard the milkshake story, but that's about it. I've heard and read about it, interested, but I really haven't used it. Or, hey, I know this, love it, use it, this is great, interested in. So, who all's in one? So we got a fair amount of none to minimal. It's like, what the heck is this? All right. How many have heard the milkshake story, but that's it? Someone's heard the milkshake story. I'll tell you a little bit about the milkshake story later. It's a Clayton Christensen video. We're not going to show that. It's a little bit overdone, kind of like the word disruptive innovation. But heard or read about it, interested, but haven't used it. Bunch. Good. That's good. How many you're into this thing? So we got, okay, that's good. So we got a good mix. How many of y'all like, I don't know what to answer. So, and I got to tell you, these icons, anyone familiar with like the design ideas in PowerPoint where they use this AI? You like put things on your PowerPoint and they like give you all these suggestions. Well, I put all these bullet points in and it gave me these icons. I got no idea what a drum set has to do with number 3, but I'm like, cool, let's go with it. All right. So we're going to talk about jobs and understanding. Realizing we've got this mix of folks. I'm probably going to steer a little bit more towards the basics, but I'm going to get into enough depth where if you know something about jobs, hopefully you're like, I heard this all before. So I'm going to hit you with fire hose. I talk pretty fast. We're going to blast through from this time's out about 30 minutes. I'm going to go through it pretty fast, hit a lot of different concepts. We're going to talk about the theory at a high level, some of the definitions, the terms, and talk to you about why is it valuable? Why would you care about this? And how have we used it at Atrium Health in one example and why it's valuable to us. Then we're going to get into what I think a lot of people have trouble with. How do I start? How do you actually do it? If you read some of the books, it doesn't necessarily tell you how to do it. So we're going to talk a little bit about this, different approaches, and then really at the end have some good discussion. My job to be done today, recognizing you have very different ones, is when I've been enlightened by others, people, thought leaders who have taught me jobs to be done, I want to inspire others to join me. I want you all to join me so that together we can be better innovators. And not only innovators in our professional work, you can actually become a better consumer as well if you understand jobs. And I want to talk towards the end. I'd like this to be the springboard to something a little bit bigger. So if I can get you fired up about it. Okay, we ready? All right. So what is jobs to be done? So first of all, it's a theory. Clayton Christensen helped really advance this theory. So it's something, you have a set of facts and circumstances and understanding about the world. You can really help explain behavior and phenomena and hopefully kind of predict things for the future of your organization. So it's good to have a very strong theory as your foundation in business, much like theory of disruptive innovation is another theory. Jobs to be done is a theory. On a personal level, jobs to be done for me, it's like putting on glasses, and they're hard for me to take off. Once you see jobs, it's kind of hard to unsee it. So it's something that personally, when you're looking at the world and how you act as a consumer and it really gives you a different lens. And then lastly, kind of as an organization, it's a mindset. It's really a mindset shift. And I'm going to start with the mindset shift. So 70 years ago, some of you may have heard this quote. It's a pretty popular quote. Ted Levitt, Harvard Business School professor, he started saying some of the same thing I said to you in the intro to this talk. People don't want to buy a 1/4-inch drill. They want a 1/4-inch hole. They don't really want your drill. And that was pretty different back then because it's steering an organization away from what they produce, how they produce it. So that's a mindset shift. It's a fundamental reframing. It's thinking much less about the organization. We call that the supply side thinking, all that internal thinking, and then shifting really to customer thinking, demand thinking. You're probably thinking, well, yeah, I get it. That's pretty simple. We're all trying to be more customer focused. And a lot of jobs, this is a cliche phrase, but a lot of jobs theory, it's common sense, it's just not really common practice. That's the fundamental reframe. Another aspect about it that's important is I'm not a statistician. We got some statisticians in here. I don't know, an R of 0.666, I don't know if that's a high correlation or not, but I look at the two lines, and these seem like two variables that are fairly well correlated together. Would you agree? Yeah. Okay, what are the variables? This is the number of people who drowned by falling into a pool correlated with the number of films Nicolas Cage has appeared in over a 10-year period. Now, I know he's made some great films. He's probably made some duds. I doubt anyone actually drowned themselves because of Nicolas Cage films. It's possible. What's the point? The point is correlation is not causality. The fact that I'm Jay Gerhart, I live in zip code 28056, I have certain income, have certain demographic characteristics, that doesn't cause me on any given day to actually do any of the things that I do or buy any of the products. Jobs to be done gets away from correlation. It's not say demographics aren't important. They don't tell you what actually causes it. So jobs to be done is about getting to the underlying why people do things, which is really what we want to learn. Spurious Correlations by Tyler Vegan is actually a really funny type of thing if you want it. So what's a job? You get to the basics here. Job is the progress someone seeks in a given situation. And this is one definition. It's kind of multiple. This is a pretty common definition. I'm going to talk to you about some of the different approaches to jobs. This is the one we use, and it's two components. It's important to realize it's two. There's progress we're trying to make. So, you know, every day we're trying to do things in our lives. We're trying to make our lives better. We're trying to be better as people. You know, we're trying to get from one place to another in different aspects of our life. So progress is kind of moving through time and space towards something, accomplishing something. Situation, your context, or your circumstance. So let's look at this young woman climbing a mountain. It'd be real easy to say, you know, okay, I'm getting to learn jobs. Her job is climbing a mountain. No, it's not. That's not what a job is. That's what she's doing. That's actually what she's hired. There could be a lot of different reasons she's doing this. You know, she could have a certain situation. Maybe this young woman recently encountered a professional challenge. Maybe she got fired. And maybe she's trying to be the best she can be and prove that she can be the best she can be. And she decided, I'm going to hire a mountain for that. Could be totally different. This young woman may have a terminal illness. And she may be wanting to, I'm going to get to the top of the mountain. I'm going to do that. I don't know how much time I have left. Very different situations, different progress. There's a lot of different things she could have hired for that. She happened to hire a mountain. That's a little bit about what jobs is, fundamental definition. Heard me use the terminology a little bit. I think terminology really is pretty simple and it works for most people. I would say when you use it in your organizations, there's always kind of like a certain percentage of people, it's like there's something about the words that's tough, or if you're in marketing or you've used other techniques, you trip over the words. Generally it works well, but every day we hire products to do a job for us. And then to the extent that they don't do them as well, or they find something else and they switch to make even better progress than before, they fire projects and they switch. They fire products and switch. Last part in terms of the definition. Really important. Jobs have three different dimensions. First is the functional. That's really all the technical specs. And I messed up. My phone's over there, so pretend I'm holding my iPhone. So, you know, I got an iPhone, and it's got lots of functional capabilities. I got no idea what they are. I don't know how many pixels I've got. I know how much storage I have. I have all these features and benefits on my phone. It does certain functional things for me. Is that the only reason we buy an iPhone? You know how many people know the pixels? I don't know that. Social. You know, how do I want other people to perceive me? I don't know if anyone's heard Scott Galloway. It's a little bit of a bombastic professor from NYU. This is a G-rated show, so I won't describe to you why he thinks people buy iPhones and why. I'll let you figure that out on your own. It's just not G-rated, but you know what other people think about us as individuals. And in China, not as much now, but earlier in this decade, you know, the iPhone in China was a particular prestige symbol of affluence. So that's very much the social component. And then lastly, the emotional. How do I feel? I'm an Apple person, have been for a long time. Got an iPad, MacBook, all that sort of thing. And it just, you know, the functionality's great, it just works, but the heart, I feel, you know, I'm part of Apple, and I think a lot of people feel that way. Three different dimensions, really easy to overemphasize functional, and the approach that we take to jobs, and we work in healthcare, it's an emotional business, the way we approach it really gets at some underlying social and emotional, because often that's the rational way that people do things that are seemingly irrational. So why do I care? Why would I want to spend some time learning jobs, implement this in my life and with my organization? So the textbook, Clayton Christensen, again, father of disruptive innovation theory that's over 20 years old now. 2016, he wrote Competing Against Luck. This is a great place to start to learn jobs kind of at a high level. And there's this pyramid where at the bottom of the pyramid, you know, the job to be done, what people are trying to get done. You need to understand that. That's the base of the pyramid. When you understand that, then you can start to design experience. And we probably got a lot of people, I know the folks at Skookum, a lot of human-centered design, start applying that, figure out how do we do this perfectly to meet this job? You figure that out, then you get into your operation, you start taking more of the supply side view. What do we have to integrate in order to deliver those experiences? You get all that done, that takes some time. You might have what's called a purpose brand, something people think of immediately. What's an example? So purpose brand, nailing the job to be done. If I tell you, if I have a job of help me furnish my apartment today, what springs to mind? Kia? Anyone else? Yeah, IKEA. You said it pretty quickly. That almost always pops up more than any other brand. And the guy who started IKEA is worth a lot of money because he nails the job to be done. I'll give you one more. This is maybe a little bit harder. Help entertain me in an affordable and convenient way. Oh, wow, this is cool. Usually IKEA is the one that blasts out at the beginning. This one, Netflix, you got it fast. Yeah, Netflix. So other ones that are out there, Disney, help me share a magical and memorable experience with my family. American Girl, help me connect and share experiences with my daughter. Minute Clinic, I want to get care conveniently. I really don't care about going to a doctor, my doctor, or any doctor. The thing about all these job statements, and we'll get into how to craft them and how to get to them and everything, the thing you don't see in any of this is the words furniture, theme parks, TV shows, dolls, or drugstores. None of those things. Jobs to be done are agnostic of solutions. They have great solutions, but they understand what the customer's trying to achieve, not what they're trying to deliver. That's a purpose brand. So that's the textbook. That's a little aspirational, so I want to bring it down a little more day-to-day level and how we've seen it impact our work at Atrium Health. One of the things that helps you do it, and this is really important for healthcare, how much healthcare jargon have you heard? We produce a lot of it, and it's hard to understand. You produce some in technology, too. We got a lot of tech people in here. When you really get into the interviews, you hear the language people use. A company called Intercom, I encourage you to look at, actually kind of retooled and reframed its organization around jobs to be done. And they're previously talking about things like outbound messages. Oh, we got to get our customers outbound messages, outbound messages. Well, they talk to their customers, and their customers don't talk about outbound messages. They don't use those words. They talk about customer engagement. So they start changing their language and speaking the language of the customer. So we found that really helpful. That's really helpful from a marketing perspective. Engage your customers at the opportune time. The process I'm going to show you really gets into the timeline of purchases and what triggers are and that sort of thing. So let's say you're Casper, a mattress company, something like that. You think the best time to send somebody a $300 off coupon via Facebook or some other thing is maybe 2 p.m. in the afternoon, you know, when everyone's working? Probably not. If you do it at 2 a.m., when the person is sitting at their kitchen table because they can't sleep because their mattress stinks, that's when you send the coupon. But you learn things like that because you really talk to the customers and you get in their lives and you see when things are happening. So you learn how to speak to them. This was really important for us. And I'm going to talk about this in a lot more depth. Understanding your customers' trade-offs and decision criteria. So for us, things like time and convenience versus is my doctor available or not, or will I need to take another one? Very important. Then lastly, a little bit more strategically, is uncover your hidden competitors. This expands your competitive set. And Reed Hastings of Netflix understands this really well. Some of you may have read about, you know, it's obvious that he's competing with, you know, Disney Plus, HBO Max, you know, Comcast cable, and all that sort of thing. Reed understands he's competing with Fortnite. Because Reed wants your eyeballs all the time. on Netflix. And every minute that you're spending on Fortnite or some other thing, I don't know, maybe you can do both at once. I'm not a gamer. But he understands that things that compete for your time and attention are competing with him. You cannot define yourself simply by your product categories. It's very limiting. So your growth potential is much larger when you define by jobs. And furthermore, you'll spot players coming into your market that you're not necessarily going to notice. So we in healthcare can look and say, we're not just competing hospital to hospital, we're competing with other health, wellness, fitness solutions. I mean, CrossFit is starting to, have physicians as franchisees. It could be competition. One of the ways you get to that, and this is a little bit of a preview to the interview technique that I'll talk about, is 5 whys. So I'll give you. So anyone know who that dude is? No, you're close. Tsukichi Toyota, father of Japanese industrial revolution. Dude's about 150 years old. No, he's not alive. I mean, he was born 150 years ago. I'm sorry, he's passed away. So he, led Toyota, invented the 5 whys technique. If you're into lean, you've done this. So let's apply this. Let's say you're talking to somebody. Let's go back to Ted Levitt's thing of, why do you want to drill? Well, I need a hole. Why do you need a hole? I got to have a plug. Oh, okay. Well, what do you need a plug for? I got to have a lamp. A lamp. Why do you need a lamp? Because I need to read better at night. Oh, you don't need a drill. Here's a Kindle. You don't need a drill at all. So you get to the why, and a lot of times consumers don't even know how to articulate what you want, what they want, and you may not know what it is, but it's almost the co-creation with the customer. If you get into that deep interviewing technique and you understand them and you innovate with them, you come up with new things. But you got to ask why. Any of you Simon Sinek fans? Start with why. I think a lot of people don't write about the tie between jobs and start with why, but it's a little bit different, but I think a lot of similarities. Okay. I'm going real fast. Everybody okay? Folks kind of getting it, making some sense? Cool. Okay, this is what we did at Atrium Health. At Atrium Health, we hired a guy I'm going to talk about named Bob Mesta in the Rewire group, help us in an area of on-demand care. On-demand, some of that lingo we use in healthcare. Well, what's that mean? We interviewed people who had sinus infections, urinary tract infections, different minor things for which they hired a wide range of products and services, us or others, because we knew that we have a lot of different products in this space and it's getting crowded. How do we help people choose? How do we differentiate them? We know it's confusing, so what do we do? So they interviewed about 16, 18 people, collected over 20 job stories, and we came up with 3 very distinct jobs to be done. These are kind of I understand they're a little wordy, they're hard to read quickly. We kind of come up with little catchphrases for them, but they're very distinct. And so I'll talk about a couple of stories that typify some of these. So jobs 1 and 2, we had a couple of different conversations with women who had urinary tract infections and hired different things. So if we start on 2, we talked to one, I've had this before. This is like 3 or 4 times. I know the drill. I know my body. I know what I need. I just need something quick. I need the script. So what did she do? She actually didn't even leave the workplace. She had a video visit from her desk, picked it up on the way home, bam, done, taken care of. Very quick, just got to get it done. Another woman maybe had them before, but was in had a very different context. Was taking fertility treatments and kind of had in the head, drug interaction. I could go to Minute Clinic for this. It's something that's very easily treatable by Minute Clinic. A lot of people do it every single day. But there's a little bit of worry. I don't want to make some things worse. I don't know if Minute Clinic knows me. My doctor knows me, so I'm going to make a trade-off. A little bit of time and convenience for my doctor that I knows me, that I know knows me. So that's kind of how the difference and distinction between those jobs. The last one is a little bit different, very much about anxiety. This is the job where a father will actually take his daughter, teenage daughter, to the emergency department at 9 or 10 o'clock at night for pink eye. Some of y'all have pink eye? It's pretty basic, right? I mean, it's irritating, but you know, it's fairly basic to treat. Took her to the ED, 9 or 10 o'clock at night, got treatment, got it taken care of, $2,000 bill. That's irrational. That's crazy, isn't it? Why would anyone do that? That's nuts. You don't need to do that. Well, if you understand the context and you understand the family history, you understand maybe family member dying of an infection that ravaged someone's body, and just thinking, this is my daughter, if something goes south overnight, geez, how am I even going to answer my wife? You know? Yeah, it's seemingly irrational. Jobs makes the irrational rational. So that's some of the work we did in Jobs to be done. And you can kind of hear in our business where all that social and emotional pressure is. So what did it do for us? One of the things we talked about marketing, again, flipping from our focus. If you look at this is some of our social media advertising. If you look at the images, it might be hard to see. These are very much about us. It like shows the provider. It shows how the video visit works. You know, it talks about what it is. We did some A/B testing and we flipped it. And we started showing context and progress. So here's the professional woman. She's not doing any work. She's too busy, you know, sneezing with allergies. What's the progress? She's doing work. This one doesn't show anything at all. It shows a guy like at a party. Because when you're well, you make the progress. Because all he wants, he doesn't want health care. He wants to get back to his life, doing what he's doing as soon as possible. Focus on progress. We had some, and that's a marketing benefit. Won't take too much time, and we can talk more afterwards. You know, another thing we did is we had those 3 jobs, and we went and talked to some of the providers in our urgent care center. And it took a little while for them to get jobs, and there's this kind of one, you know, kind of cranky looking physician. I didn't know if we were reaching him, but he finally said, you know what? If I understand if that person is a job 2 or 3 before they get to me, I'm more prepared on how to talk to them. Because that job 2 person wants in and out, doesn't need a lot of chit chat, doesn't have a lot of questions, wants time and convenience. I can take some of that time, get them on the way with what they want, and take that job 3 patient, because I've got to be patient with them. I've got to field questions, whether they irritate me or not. And so again, it's not easy to hardwire that into your system. You've got to figure out how you identify the jobs. We've made some progress there. It's not perfect, but you know, hearing that really gave us some validation that we were onto something. So just, you know, other examples we can share later time, a little bit of what we've done at Atrium. Okay. So is it starting to sound helpful to know what the jobs are? I think it is. How do you do it? So I mentioned Bob Messi, CEO of the Rewire Group. I'm going to show you some more resources on him. And you know, this is full disclaimer. There's some different approaches to jobs and different people that teach it. So I'm telling you more about what I know and what works for us. I'm going to show you some other approaches. Bob is an incredible individual in terms of a teacher and a human, good friend to our team. And he says the struggling moment is the seed of all innovation. So you search for struggling moments. Well, how do you do that? Bob is particularly known for his interview technique. So I put this slide together. Does anyone else find that image creepy? I think it's creepy. This is again, that Microsoft AI design. Took a couple of icons that I did and like put them together in this weird dream sequence. And I left it in. I left it in because the concepts are, this is based on criminal intelligence interrogation. That's how Bob learned this. Like, probably 20 years ago. He wanted to understand, how do I get this story out of a customer? Well, I'm going to talk to people who really get information out of people. And believe me, the conversations, we don't get people under a light and put them in a black ops center to do it. It's much nicer than that. And actually, the reality is, most people you interview love the interview because they talk about all this stuff and you're listening to them. The other thing is, why this little girl with big glasses is there, is you adopt a child's mindset. You've got to come into these interviews asking, what word does a child use? Why? You don't come in with any preconceived notions. You are only there to get the story. You're not there to test your product by anyone or ask them what they think about the product. You may not talk about your product hardly at all. You're simply trying to get their story. So what you do is you don't need a ton of people. Honestly, you can sometimes get with 5 to 10. We did about 16, depends on complexity of the product. Hired and fired over the past 90 days is better. The farther back you go, the harder it is for people to remember details. And what you're really trying to get are details. These are long, 40, 45 minute, maybe an hour conversations. So you do all those, you record them, ideally, maybe even transcribe them. You get a lot of notes down. You categorize a lot of bits of information. I'm going to show you some more detail on that in a minute. You do some cluster analysis. You can do the cluster analysis qualitatively. There's if you know some statistical things, you can actually do some math and get to the clusters to get 3, 4, 5 jobs. You're not looking for 15 jobs. You're looking to cluster these people based on their progress and their context. You get that, then you go validate. We did that with our urgent care. We did that in another week or so. Bob pushes you to prototype and test quickly. So we got in our urgent cares and started testing a few questions to see, can we identify the jobs and are they making sense? So we did that real quick. So you prototype. So, okay, that sounds great. How do I do the interviews? Where's the interview guide? There is none. There's no interview guide. You come in with a child's mindset. One of the things you try to do is look at the timeline. And I'm not going to go through all of this. This is very complicated, but the main thing is there's a lot of things that may happen, particularly depending on the product. I mean, you're talking about buying a house, this could be years. First thought, passive looking, active looking. I'm actually, I called a realtor. To deciding, consuming. That can take a long time. So you're trying to, again, think about your police shows where you got people trying to reconstruct the timeline, and you're gonna bounce around a lot. It's a very organic conversation where all you do is listen with laser-like focus on who you're talking to. So you got the timeline. I'm gonna use myself to explain this a little bit more. That's a great looking car, isn't it? Does anyone have a Tesla? If you do, I'm really jealous. I want one. So I saw one a few months ago. I saw one in the parking lot, and I'd seen a lot of Teslas, but this one is the one because it had the white interior and exterior. So it's just the one I want. So first creepy thing I did is take a picture of it. And then, what did I do next? Did I go to the Tesla dealership or start building it? No, I got on Medium and I wrote about it. And I wrote about this and jobs to be done because I'm a total geek. I'm just a total nerd. Someone help me. So I was kind of in that timeline, maybe a little bit before first thought. Haven't bought one yet. Why haven't I bought one? Well, it's because of the forces of progress. So forces of progress is another aspect of the interviewing. This framework, which is super simple, is honestly one of the most useful things I've learned in business for a really long time. And you learn it, you're actually, I'll towards the end of the presentation, tell you how you use this in your life as well. So the forces on the top promote change. They take you from business as usual to a new behavior, from smoking to not smoking, to the old way, the car I have, to that beautiful Model 3. So the things at the top, pushes and pulls. Pushes are things, the context of your life, It might be your doctor saying your blood pressure's too high. It's a push. You got to pull. That Tesla is a pull. Boy, I like that white interior. That's really good. You know, I'll give you some more examples of that. So those are kind of obvious sometimes. You think about this is like under the surface. The habits and anxieties are incredibly strong. Those are the things that resist change. How do you get someone to change behavior or hire your product? You get the sum of the top two to exceed the bottom, you can get them to switch. So let's get in that a little bit deeper. Oh, there we go. Won't go through all these. So again, this is the nerd that I am. I'm a year from buying a Tesla. I've run the forces of progress on myself. So don't have tons of pushes. Maybe that's one reason I haven't bought it. My car is 7 years old, could have major repairs. The electrical vehicle tax credits expiring, probably won't get renewed. Lots of pulls, like the way it looks. I think Elon Musk is amazing. I want to help him get to Mars. I'm willing to overpay for a car to help Elon get to Mars. You know, no more gas stations. They got about 14 moving parts in a Tesla. Lots of pulls. Why hadn't I bought one? Well, I got habits. First of all, my wife and I are on a calendar. And when you talk to people deeply in these interviews, you start to learn. And we learned this, with some of our patients and about their health, how often do they schedule healthcare appointments and that, they have calendars. We have a calendar for our car. It's not time yet. Put in bold, we have a vacation routine. We go down to Kiowa Island 2 times a year. We do it like clockwork because we're creatures of habit. So I got anxieties. I'm a little worried. Tesla could still go bankrupt. It's not easy to service a Tesla. There's lots of things to still kind of worry about. It's very different. I think about that vacation routine. 250 miles. Tesla Model 3 rated for 310, now boosted to 322. That should make it. But no, since I'm an extra worrier, we're driving down in July. What if I don't get 250? What if it's like 300? It's like my wife isn't going to want to stop in Columbia at a supercharging station. We got to get there. As crazy as it sounds, if I don't get convinced we can get down to Kiowa on one charge, I won't buy a Tesla. Jobs to be done makes the irrational rational. Okay, so hopefully force of progress makes some sense. So go back, now you've got this, go back home, and you could like drive your spouse crazy with this. I do this like all the time. Take a purchase. Maybe you're buying a home or a car or some other big change. Start to think, what are my pushes and pulls, habits and anxieties? It's really interesting. Again, this isn't just being a better innovator. You can be a totally better consumer if you understand this. Okay, so this is all great. It's not easy. We don't do this perfectly. It's not the only tool in our toolkit at Atrium Health. It's very important. We don't necessarily do the interviews every day. It does take time, training, and practice. And one thing that I kind of see in social media and things, it's like people, it's easy to come to a talk like this, read Clay's book, you get excited about it, and it's like, how do I do it? And we were super fortunate to hire Bob on an engagement. He did the interviews, we watched him, he trained us, he coached it. It's like the mega training that we got from him, but you can't always do that. So one of the things I want to talk about, if you're in that position, how do I make progress? Terminology can trip people up. Folks who say, oh yeah, I know this, but they don't really know it deeply. And there's some different approaches to applying the theory. So these aren't the only resources out there, and if you do a lot of searching, you'll find some other people who have written things on the topic, good stuff. And I encourage you, I've looked at it all, and I encourage you to look at it all. Competing versus luck is a good place to start at kind of a 30,000-foot level. It's also really good where if you get excited about jobs, but you've got to get kind of the senior executives more bought in as to why do I want to spend time and money. It's a little bit more on that level. it doesn't really get into how to do it. So Bob and the Rewire Group do have a lot of resources. So you get on their website, you go under Our Thinking. They've got a podcast. I've probably listened to all his episodes 3 times or so. You listen to one called The Mattress Interview. If you want to hear a real jobs to be done interview, The Mattress Interview is kind of a classic. We did one on our podcast in terms of higher education. Maybe that'll be a classic too. If everyone subscribes and listens, then it can become a classic. Bob also holds Switch 2.0 workshops. They don't come very often. They're pretty small. I think they're, they cost a little bit of money, although they're affordable. Watch it. If you ever do have the opportunity to merely do that, to go to Bob's office for a couple of days, it's well worth, not just learning jobs, it's a big experience, and you will learn a ton as an innovator. Other things, I'm going to give you some information on how to subscribe to the podcast. Also, the Disruptive Voice at Harvard Business School. This is Clay's research team. So a number of their episodes talk a good bit about jobs. Some of the other authors focus on jobs. Also, Intercom, more of a B2B business. They actually have a lot of books, free ebooks, and they've got a good book on jobs that actually get into some detail of how you do this. So it's totally free. Just get it. So there's a few places to start. Talked about alternative approaches, and again, I've talked about one approach that's what we've used. Honestly, and I'm not going to go there in this talk. If you get into the deep dark reaches of Twitter and the hashtag JTBD part of Twitter, if you go back, there's been a lot of argument. There's been some drama. There's been some controversy with some characters. It's kind of weird that there's drama over a theory like this. But this is another approach. Tony Alwick, a lot of similarities in terms of the underlying jobs theory. Tony just has a little different approach, a little bit different definitions for some things. It's a little bit focused on core functional job, really rigorous. They have standardized job map that you plot out, and you uncover 50 to 150 desired outcomes. So there's a lot of quantitative to say, okay, I want to minimize this, I want to maximize this or increase this. And again, outcomes-driven innovation. Then you do a pretty big, statistically significant survey sample. So a lot of rigor, a lot of complexity. My recommendation is there's a Medium post, and I would, again, I don't use this. It hasn't resonated as much with us, and we have a lot of emotional stuff. Could use it someday. We just haven't yet. This article, he's put a lot of stuff out there, so you can learn a lot about ODI. You're not really going to be able to do it until you either hire Tony in Stratogen, take a master class, or he's got some new online training to do that. But that article will give you a really good overview. And as we get into the discussion portion, one of the things I want to do is would love to hear folks who have used different approaches. Other folks who try to blend, we've tried to think about blending the two. It's probably possible, it's hard. So again, want to give some equal time. I think you should look at all the options. I think particularly for some functional, medical device industry is dealt with tools and some things with some very functional, I can see how that can be really helpful. And he's got a free book as well. So last, getting close to close. Doing good on time? 7 minutes. Okay. Almost done. So anyone read How Will You Measure Your Life? Clay Christensen. You haven't read it? Good. Great book. Clay takes his business theories and applies it to your life. So disruptive innovation, other theories. The chapter on jobs to be done is your spouse. What's my job to be done in hiring my spouse? So I said, once you see it, you can't unsee it. This isn't just about your product. But that's a transformational book. It's not very long. Great book. Also, I highly recommend, if you have a kid anywhere close to college or have friends thinking about college, I love this book. And if you turn into a jobs nerd like me, Michael Horn and Bob Mesta co-wrote a book entirely based on jobs. They did hundreds of interviews with people learning at different stages of their life and uncovered 5 jobs to be done of learning throughout your life. Amazing book, really interesting. Plus it helps you understand and apply jobs better as well. They were both on our podcast recently, so another reason to listen to the podcast. Then lastly, talked about the competitive set. This isn't going to be the last book Bob writes. I think one in the future will be, he's actually done interviews on why people hire and fire religion. It's amazing to talk to him about this. So if you're, in your church and you're wondering, what do we do about membership, millennials going down, you realize competing with things like CrossFit. You don't think that's the case, but you get into it. There's a wide competitive set. CrossFit is they're not doing everything in the job to be done in religion, but they're doing just enough in enough areas that people are spending time there and maybe not going to church. So again, once you see it, you can't unsee it. All right, last wrap up. Connect with me, Twitter. I've written some stuff on Medium that I've talked about, LinkedIn. Okay, everyone, you get your phone out. You go to the podcast platform of your choice, Apple Podcasts, any of these things. You search Sherpa's Guide, you'll find it. Then you bang that subscribe button, and you become a listener, and you'll get all the episodes as soon as they come out. But I hope that's also a good way to get to know. It's not just about jobs. We cover a wide range of innovation topics inside and outside of healthcare. We've got some cool stuff on there. Got 55 episodes, so you got a lot of catching up to do. And this has nothing to do with any of it. Anyone like to laugh? So I'm in Charlotte Comedy Theater. I'm in a group. Join Hug Life. Group Hugs and Harmonies, my improv team. We got a show this Saturday. Get on Eventbrite. Got another show in November. We do one about every month. So that's completely shameless plug. It has nothing to do with this. I love it. Okay. So what time we got?
5 minutes.
We have 5 minutes for questions. Yeah. So I went over. Oh dear. So questions, share your experience. And what I'll say is, and we can do this offline, feel free to connect with me. There's some cities around the world internationally that have jobs to be done meetups where you get people who are interested in. And this is where I think it's helpful if you're still struggling to figure out how to do this. We've been trained in different ways. How do we collaborate? Let's get that going. We can start. If there's some interest in this, then we have that forum to go deeper in terms of how to really practice and do it. So I would love to get interest, talk to folks at Skookum about it, maybe whether it's before the end of the year, definitely like January or something, we start a meetup and get a little deeper into all this.